All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my Degasms. I am hosting the Mixed Mental Arts movie chat on Robocop again because Dusty was having some more technical difficulties. Of course, he is here, Dusty Cubes, aka the Woke Centrist, aka Dustin Cubit, and we're talking
Hey.
about Robocop, the awesome satire that Dusty suggested we talk about since it's directed by the guy who Paul Verhoeven, I think it is, right? Who directed Starship Troopers, which we talked about last week. And I think Dusty was correct in guessing that I would like it because it's satirical in a lot of the same ways as Starship Troopers, like hilariously cheesy dialogue and ridiculously over the top violence to the point that it's like cartoonish, and those ads that it has in it, like you said, is similar to Starship Troopers. Like my favorite one is marketing that sort of board game called Nukem to children. It's so
Yeah, it's basically Battleship with nukes. It
yeah,
kind of looked like.
yeah. Yeah, that's
I'll
so
buy
great.
that for $1.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is a quote that has actually spanned into other franchises. There is a game called Smash TV. That was
Yeah.
an arcade game. The announcer in the game uses that phrase frequently.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that phrase like a lot of movies and TV shows. I didn't know that that was where it originated.
Yes, that's where it originated.
Okay.
I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah. Yeah, there's there's so many cheesy lines in that movie. Like they're talking to each other like, "Come on there, pal. What you doing, asshole?" That it's funny too cuz the guy who's like the main villain,
Clarence.
that
Are
guy
you
with
talking about Clarence or Dick Jones?
uh the like balding guy with glasses.
Oh,
Not the
yes.
CEO guy.
Yeah, Clarence Boddicker.
Yeah, that it's funny because uh, the first thing I saw that actor in, Kurtwood Smith, I think his name is.
That
I
70s
think,
show.
yeah, that '70s show. So I kept thinking of him as Red. I kept thinking of him. I kept waiting for him to call someone a skinny, twitchy dumbass.
Yeah, so Red. That's what I was thinking as well. But I forgot that connection between Red and RoboCop because it's been a long ass time since I've seen RoboCop, at least the first one. And I was like, oh yeah, Red's in this.
Yeah,
But yeah, like as a whole, there's a lot of funny moments. There's also, it has its serious moments as well. Like when he goes back to check his old house and he has flashbacks about his former life.
yeah,
Um, and there's, they kind of play with the ethical issues of doing that to a human being and what that means.
yeah,
But they do silly things too, like a lot of news reports are silly as hell.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
that
for sure.
weird sitcom that everyone's watching with the weird looking dude with glasses that just constantly says, I'll buy that for $1. I think
Yeah.
in one of those scenes, he's like with two hookers or something like that.
Oh, really? I didn't remember that.
Yeah, so it's kind of interspersed, but there's, you know, the movie opens up and it opens up on news, like kind of satirical ish news reports about like the state of the world. Um, and we kind of see that, I guess the moral of this film is, or at least what they're alluding to, is kind of like this corporatism and how they were kind of trying to take over the police force
Yeah,
and
yeah.
privatize it.
Yeah, I was thinking it seems like some of the major themes are the corporatization and the militarization of cops, and like especially with that Nukem game, although it's not as central to the main story, like just like military expansion in general, like American military expansion, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, so the movie starts off, you get these news reports, and then in the very beginning, Murphy has joined this new precinct, right? And while he's walking through the new place, there's kind of whispers of the officers wanting to go on strike. So they're super unhappy with their jobs. And that's, I think one of the reasons is because one of the officers had just gotten killed or something off camera. And everyone's like kind of bummed out about it.
Well, one of the other similarities I noticed between RoboCop and Starship Troopers are that I don't know how realistic this is because I don't know how it actually works with cops, but I noticed that there was that sort of co-ed thing going on that goes on in Starship Troopers. Like there were female cops changing like right next to guys who were changing.
Yeah, maybe it's because I know the director, Paul Verhoeven, isn't, it's like from Europe. I don't know if that's a European thing or that's just kind of his vision for the future.
You
Because
know,
it seems like, go ahead.
apparently, he directed that shower scene in Starship Troopers while naked himself. I think he
Are you
follows.
serious?
Yeah, yeah. He's apparently he follows that filmmaker rule that
If
I won't
he
do
makes them
anything. I
do it,
won't make my actors do anything that I wouldn't do myself.
I guess it makes sense. Um, some people would probably think it's a little creepy,
Yeah.
but I guess it makes sense in a way that, hey, if you're willing to go through this crap, so am I. Um, it's kind of putting his, words to action. But I
Putting his
guess there's
dick where
kind
his mouth
of,
is.
yeah, but I guess there's kind of a couple different ways you can construe that, right? I think he was probably more so trying to make everyone feel comfortable. It'd be funny if he made everybody do it, like the camera dudes, um, and whatnot. But there's a bunch of naked people anyway in that scene. Like, what's another director guy sitting in the chair naked gonna do?
Yeah.
Probably would have been creepy if he had a boner, but that's a different story.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be funny. You'd have to be like,
Yeah,
oh shit, think of grandmas. Think of dead people.
yeah. So, continuing in the movie, we get to see Murphy, I guess, kind of go on his first assignment. It's not really assignment. I guess they're on patrol and whatnot, and they encounter a van full of adversaries who have the worst aim I've seen on film.
Yeah.
Um, they're like what, less than 20 feet away from each other, and they're not hitting each other at all.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how. Eventually, he shoots a couple of them, or they shoot a couple of them in the van. But it's kind of crazy how close they were to each other, and they kept missing.
Yeah.
It just didn't make any sense. Um, anyway, they eventually get to like a factory, right? Because they're chasing them down, and Lewis. So I guess we didn't cover Lewis. They met back at the precinct. They
Right.
get acquainted when Lewis does some type of restraining hold on a guy and beats up like a suspect, and that's when they kind of met and they were told they're going to be partners. So they're at the factory. They get separated, right? This is kind of sad and funny. So, can you explain what happens to Lewis here?
To Lewis? That's
Lewis, the
that's
female,
Murphy. That's
his
Murphy's partner.
female partner. Yeah, that's his Lewis.
I think
Lewis is her last name.
I think she catches a guy taking a piss, and then she points her gun at him, and then at one point she starts looking down at his dick, and then he uses that advantage to knock the gun out of her hands.
Yeah, so she couldn't resist looking at the BBC, right?
Yeah,
So as soon as she looked at the BBC, she got knocked the hell out. And when I say knocked the hell out, she gets punched off of a catwalk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty over the top. That's the 80s for you.
Yeah.
And then you see Murphy. So they're split up. Murphy's on his own, and he comes across like the weirdo criminal with the sideburns, like the ginger guy.
Oh yeah.
And they put their hands up, and then he gets ambushed by a third guy. And I want you to explain what happens to Murphy next here.
Well, after they like fight each other for a while, I forget exactly how it happens. Maybe you can fill in the details, but I just remember Murphy ends up getting shot to death, and he gets shot like 100 fucking times. He's yelling for like 2 minutes straight. It's so violent and it's so over the top violence that it just made me laugh a lot because it's so hilarious.
Well, the first thing that happens is he gets his hand shot off by a shotgun.
Yeah.
And then they form like a firing squad and unload shotguns on him for like a minute.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of like drops to his knees and just starts screaming. I don't know how he's able to.
Yeah, I know.
Actually, he's still on his knees by the time they empty their clips.
Yeah, that's pretty insane.
All right, hold on a second here.
Oh, give him a call. Yeah, that's really funny. And he ends up fucking surviving all of that shit somehow too. Which is also hilarious because someone getting shot that many times would definitely be fucking dead. So, but
you got to remember too, at the end he gets shot in the head.
Yeah. But apparently he's still alive when he's in an ambulance so that he can be made into Robocop.
Well, the crazy thing is like Lewis witnesses the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because she wakes up and she's watching him getting blasted to death by shotguns, and then after all the criminals are gone, she goes up to him and he looks dead as hell.
Yeah.
You would never guess that he had survived that.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was watching that, I was like, what the fuck? How the fuck did he fucking survive that?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, there's kind of some interstitials here dealing with the corporation.
Yeah.
And there's, like, some guys that are rivals, right, with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to talk about the Ed 209 demonstration.
Yeah, so that's a big theme of the movie, that this corporation controls the police. Where is it again? Is it Detroit or
it's in
LA?
Detroit?
Detroit.
Yeah, it's in Detroit. Mm-hmm.
So this corporation controls the Detroit police, and there are these two guys, this younger guy and this older guy, kind of competing to sell basically different types of military grade hardware to the police. And the younger guy, I don't know if we actually know yet that he wants to institute the Robocop idea, but
that's his idea, is the Robocop idea.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't know if we already know at this point or not.
Well, we don't know until after the Ed 209 failure.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
do you want to talk about the Ed
Yeah,
209 failure?
so the older guy's idea is to have this like giant killer robot with like mini guns for arms, and so he brings it to show to the board of directors of the corporation this robot and demonstrate what it can do. And then he has one of the board members uh load a gun and turn the safety off and point it at the robot, and the robot jumps into action mode and turns itself on, and it says, "Drop your weapon, you have 20 seconds to comply." And then he drops the weapon, and you see it like glitch and twitch and make a noise, and then it says, "You have 15 seconds to comply." And then it counts down, and it like shoots and shreds the shit out of the fucking guy.
And then he gets shot for like a good 10 seconds,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Like he basically gets turned into a hamburger.
Yeah.
And he eventually lands like on the model of the city. And it's funny because like all the other board members kind of know what's going to happen, so they start pushing him around like hot potato because they know that the drone robot's going to start shooting. So they're just like everyone's shoving him away from themselves because they don't want to get shot.
Yeah.
And then the old guy is like, fuck.
Yeah.
It's like, we could still salvage this. It's like, yeah, the fuck right. So that's when the younger guy swoops in with his idea of the Robocop.
Mm-hmm.
And says, oh, it's in a prototype, we can have it ready. And I think it was like 90 days or something. And that's where Murphy's dead body or whatever kind of body comes in. He becomes the organic part of the Robocop cyborg. So I guess we just kind of see like his activation sequence, and like all the scientists partying it up because, oh, he's activated, yay, we did it.
And the guy decides to remove one of his arms because only his one hand was shot off, but he wanted to remove the other one so he could have two robotic arms, was it?
Yeah, because I think the only thing they kept was like his face, like his brain and spinal cord. And that's interesting because in the newer Robocop movie, they kept one of his arms.
Like the remake?
Yeah, the remake. So
okay. I haven't seen that one either.
Yeah, they actually included his arm. So I wonder if that was kind of like a nod back to the original, where, hey, what if we kept his arm instead of destroying it or whatever? But yeah, so he wakes up, right? And we, like in the very beginning, we kind of see his interaction with the regular cops. I think one of the most notable scenes is when they're at the gun range.
Yeah.
And everyone's just like firing off their guns, and then you hear like this weird, like machine gun burst of fire, and all the cops are like looking around to see where it's coming from. And they all go and see. There's like a bunch of scientists like basically monitoring his progress, and we get to see him shred targets to pieces with like his crazy machine pistol kind of handgun. So yeah, he gets kind of tested, and I think he finally goes out on a couple missions, right? Like a couple stops, which are funny. Like anytime he has to deal with like a regular criminal, it's hilarious.
Yeah,
like I think
like when that guy's robbing the convenience store and he comes in and stops him, he like throws him through two plates of a glass of a window or something, and then he says you're under arrest before he does that, but then he doesn't actually like put him into his car and take him to the police station.
No, he just leaves them there.
Yeah.
And then the guy, when he goes and he does a robbery, his gun is like a World War II machine gun.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Like a really funky old machine gun. I was like, oh, well, I guess it's 87. Yeah, I guess they'd be using old type of guns in movies like that. But
What type of gun was it? I don't remember.
it's like I think it's called a STEM 40, or it's the machine gun that has the side mounted clip.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking
I
about.
know for sure it's a World War II machine gun. I think it's the British use those.
I
If
remember
I'm
that
not
from Call of
mistaken.
Duty games.
Yeah, that's where I recognized it from.
Yeah.
And then there's the like attempted rape. Can you describe how that stop goes?
Oh yeah, that's like these two guys are trying to rape this girl, but they start off like just like being really creepy and rapey, but then they want to like smell her hair and they cut off a piece to smell it, and then they're like, "Ooh, let's check the hair down there," and then one cut tries to cut her skirt that she's wearing to get in there, and then RoboCop comes and stops them, and they have a knife, so they're threatening, so he murders the shit out of them.
Yeah, but he does it in an interesting way. So, like the dude holds the girl hostage, and he shoots
Yeah,
shoots right in front of him. So it's like a super difficult shot. So instead of doing what you would expect, which would be like a super precise headshot on the guy, he shoots through her dress to
yeah,
hit the dude in the dick,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. That's that's so funny.
It's like super unexpected. Like it's like, okay, this is where he's gonna do this precision headshot, but no, he shoots the guy through the woman's dress
Yeah.
in the dick.
Hmm.
So
That's a
there are like
different kind
some
of precision
subverting.
shot,
What's
right?
that?
That's a different kind of precision shot. Right
Well,
under the pussy and into his dick.
yeah, it's a different type of precision headshot. It's just a different head. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we get the sense that, oh yeah, he's a fucking badass cop, right? And then I guess in the background too, if we go back to the corporate stuff, like there's a part where he's in the bathroom. I think his name is Robert, like the younger guy.
Yeah.
And he starts talking shit about, I think his name is Dick Jones, the older guy.
Yeah. His name is so funny to me. It sounds like a porn star name.
And then like the bathroom starts to clear out because I guess those people who already were in the bathroom knew Dick Jones was like in a stall. So they're like, oh shit, he's talking shit. Let's get out of here. And then finally, Dick Jones emerges from the stall. And I think he gets like physically aggressive with Robert. But he's basically tells him right then and there, like, you're gonna pay for this shit.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
basically taking his contract. So I
Because he
guess,
called him an asshole.
well, yeah, there's that too. So, and I had notes, but they were on my computer that was having technical difficulties. But next thing that comes up, right, is I'm trying to remember when he has a flashback. I'm thinking he has the flashback after he meets the first criminal guy. Is that right?
I think so. I'm not totally sure.
Or oh no. I'm sorry, I'm wrong about that. He was, I guess he was in his little chamber where he gets recharged or whatever they do. And he had like a dream or something, right?
Yeah. He has a dream. He has a dream that he's being. I think he maybe has a dream of his death. So he thinks he's under threat, and then he goes off. I guess he goes. That's when he goes hunting the guy who killed him, Red. Right?
Well,
The
it's
Red
not quite
character.
yet, because I know
No.
what
Okay.
happens next is he goes storming through the hallway, and that's
Yes.
when
Right.
Lewis reminds him of who he is, or at least
Yeah.
says, she's like, "Oh, your name's Murphy," because she asks him what his name is first, and he
Yeah.
doesn't know, or he says he doesn't have one.
And I think
And then,
she clues into that earlier when seeing him at the gun range, and no, wait, was it the gun range? I don't remember whether it was, but when he does that thing that he did before he became RoboCop, that he showed her that he did because his
oh, the
son likes it on his
twirl.
TV show, where after he shoots, he like twirls the gun in his hand in that cowboy way, and then puts it back.
Yeah, the TJ Laser show
Yeah,
is the one
yeah,
that his son likes.
yeah,
So I think that gave her a clue as to, hey, he must have some of his personality left.
yeah,
Because we get the kind of sense that from when he gets killed to when he joins the force in that precinct, there's a little bit of time that has elapsed there. I don't know, possibly. Because it would seem kind of crazy that on his very first assignment, he just gets fucked to hell,
yeah.
and then, but who knows? But anyway, so yeah, he goes storming off, and I think this is the part where he goes in and checks his old address. Man, I don't have the timeline right, but I know some point in the movie he goes to his old address. He has some flashbacks um, of when he was still alive, or at least a human. I thought that was pretty interesting how they did that, because they really did a good sense of a first person view, because that's something that we see a lot from Murphy, is we get to see his first person view a lot. So we get to see him as a robot and to see what type of vision he has. And then when he has a flashback, we also get a first person view of his experiences in the past.
Yeah. I like the way they do that too. How he's walking through their old house and he sees that it's been damaged and ransacked, but they're juxtaposing that with his flashbacks and what it looked like when he was there with his family.
Mm-hmm. So I know sometime after he starts going after the criminals, right? But he doesn't go after them. He kind of gets he has more flashbacks, right? So he randomly comes across the ginger dude robbing a gas station.
Right. Oh, the that
Um,
like balding dude.
yeah.
Oh,
No, no,
right.
no, not red.
No,
Um,
the other balding dude. Isn't he kind of
yeah,
balding too? He looked
yeah,
like
that balding dude.
he looked a lot like Flea to me at first. I thought that was
Fleek,
Flea at
because
first
of the hair, is how
because
his
I
hair
know
was.
that he's been in a few movies, so I thought it was possible. But then I saw no, that's not him. But he does look like Flea to me.
Maybe he was inspired by Flea.
Maybe.
But yeah, so Robocop stops the crime in progress, and there's like a weird little thing that happens between them, right?
Yeah, I forget exactly the details of it, but he has like these other flashbacks while he's fighting him, and it causes him to malfunction, and then the guy he gets away with basically blowing up the gas station and escapes on the motorbike, but then RoboCop still shoots him and then he gets away. I don't know. Like I said, I'm really unsure about the details. You probably know them better than me.
Yeah, so he glitches out. So this creates an opening for the criminal guy to get away. And he glitches out because he sees the guy and he starts having flashbacks about when he gets shot to death by shotguns.
Right.
Probably the best death by shotgun scene ever put on film.
Yeah.
I don't think anything can top that. I just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
So anyway, he glitches out, but he does. I think he shoots the guy's motorcycle. Right? He's on a motorbike, and didn't he crash like into a car? Like I was
Yeah, I
like,
think so.
Jesus Christ! I was like, how can you get up after that? But he
Yeah.
does, and he
Yeah.
gets away.
Well, everyone is like pretty armored or almost indestructible in this movie.
Yeah, so this causes him to go back to the precinct and do like a search in their database, right? And at that time, he looks through and he finds all the different criminals that were associated with his murder. So his next task, he goes storming out, and the cops are kind of surprised at this when they see him doing this. Like this is before, because I know there was a part, like when he woke up from the dream, everyone was freaking the hell out because it was like they lost control of their product, because that's what the younger CEO refers to Robocop as a product, not as an actual person.
Yeah.
Like, so the next action, he goes out to like a nightclub, right? And he finds one of the criminals and he questions him and he asks him where's Boddicker, or where's, the main guy. I forgot what happens here. I don't remember exactly what he does with the guy, but
Yeah.
do you remember what happens in that nightclub?
I don't remember either. I just remember that he beats him up. That's all.
Like
Yeah.
he beats him up. He gets information about Boddicker, right? And I'm trying to remember what comes first. Boddicker getting apprehended. No, that's not what comes first. The next thing that happens is we go over to the rich guy's house, right? The young rich guy. And he's snorting coke with prostitutes, right?
Right.
So he's having fun, and Boddicker shows up, and he shoots his legs, right? And then Boddicker's like, well, he's there because he has a message, and he turns on the TV, and it's Dick Jones.
Right.
And it's a recording, and basically he's there to get his revenge, mainly for him talking shit to him in the bathroom, from what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And everyone hearing it. So Boddicker disables Robert, I don't remember his last name, so that he can't walk. He just fucks his legs to hell. Like, it's pretty graphic.
Yep.
And he places a grenade on the coffee table with a digital timer, and it's like counting down. He casually strolls out, and then Robert actually gets his hands on it, but it's like way too late, and it just blows up.
Yeah.
And the next part, I think, is when he goes out to get him, right? To get Boddicker the first time.
Yeah.
So he goes back. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's the what we see a few times earlier features prominently here, where you see through Robocop's first person perspective, rather, his prime directives, his three directives, and then his fourth classified directive, which we find out here, obviously, right?
Yeah, we find that out not quite here, but after. So
Oh,
He
okay.
goes, yeah, he goes to like that old mill or whatever that he got shot up at. This old mill is like at least 3 times in the movie. It's one of the locations they use regularly. So he goes back, and there's like kind of like a drug deal going down, right?
Yeah.
I think Clarence Boddicker calls some guy like a wop bastard or something like that.
It's funny how he does like every crime in the book. Like when he looks at his criminal record too, it's like rape, extortion, armed robbery, drug dealing, gambling, prostitution. I think I'm probably forgetting a couple.
Yeah, he's basically like a crime lord
Yeah,
in the movie. But they go back to the lab, and then RoboCop just tears shit up, right? He takes out basically everybody,
yeah,
and he leaves Boddicker alive.
yeah. Because he
And
literally can't kill him, right?
not that's not it. That's not quite it yet, because he
Oh,
doesn't
okay. I'm
know.
getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, because no, he can't. He doesn't actually want to kill him. He's trying to bring him to justice.
Right.
So he takes him in because he wouldn't be able to arrest him either. The fourth um, rule doesn't allow him to perform an arrest. So
On
so he
the
takes him in.
That's on the on employees of that corporation who controls
Yeah,
the Detroit police, right?
yeah. He can't arrest anybody.
Right.
As he, so all right. So he I think he gets Boddicker like before he's taken in. He gets Boddicker to name Jones, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So he takes him to the precinct. Everyone's surprised as hell because this guy's like a known criminal. And Boddicker's pretty calm. He's like, "Oh, I'm not going to be here for that long,"
Hmm.
and that was kind of true. So the next thing that happens is RoboCop marches to the OCP offices, right? And he demands the arrest of Jones. He goes up in the office, and that's when he discovers that directive because
Yes.
he's about to arrest Jones, and he can't because of the fourth directive.
Yeah, he starts malfunctioning.
So yeah, he starts glitching out a bit. So upon that happening, do you remember what happens next with the with who does he call back into the fray?
Um, I don't remember. Is this where he ends up with his old partner somehow? But I don't remember how.
He does, but that happens a bit later.
Okay, no.
Who? Okay, so who is
Wait, is
Dick
it
Jones?
when? Is this when? It might be. This might be a little
It's
later
a
too.
fight happens right now.
Oh, this
Who
is the
what?
fight between him and the like giant killer robot from earlier.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, they fight each other and he gets the shit shot out of him, but then he goes down some stairs and that robot can't go downstairs. So it gets all fucked up.
Yeah. So it's trying to negotiate the stairs. Like it spends like 20 seconds trying to figure out how to go downstairs. Like this is poorly designed robot, right? Can't even go down a flight of stairs.
Yeah.
And it attempts to, but what happens?
It like its feet can't fit on the stairs, so it falls over and it starts like twitching.
It falls over and it falls and it can't get up.
Yeah.
Like it's in serious need of life alert at that point.
Yeah.
Um, so he just kind of strolls out of there. And then what happens when he gets to like the front of the building?
Then like all the cops have him surrounded and they tell him to stop But I think he just keeps walking, so they all start shooting the shit out of him like hundreds of times. And he's
Yes.
bulletproof now, but he still gets somewhat hurt, I think, right? And
Yeah, he gets knocked around quite a bit from all the gunfire, and we learned that the rationale, because when you first see the police like firing on him, we're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why would they do that? We find out that they were fed some bullshit that um, they were told that Robocop was responsible for killing another police officer.
yeah,
They really didn't go into that much, but that was kind of what we find out why they were so hostile towards him at that point.
right. I forgot that until you mentioned it.
So he gets pretty well jacked up. Lewis comes around in her car and she helps him. And they go right away, right? They get the hell out of there.
That I thought that one part in that was weird, where the cops were shooting the shit out of him, and then it was sort of like they just stopped shooting him while she rescued him, and then they started shooting them again when they were driving away.
Yeah, well, what happened? Well, what it appeared to happen is he fell over, like, I don't know, some type of balcony or something. So they didn't have like a clear line of sight at him at that time. There wasn't a clear line. So as he fell over, he crawls for a little bit, and that's when she pulls up. And as she pulls up, that's when we see cops get to that balcony that he fell from. And that's
Oh,
when they start shooting at him again.
okay.
So it's a failed attempt to kill RoboCop, and Dick Jones has another. Well, there's also other things that are going on, right? I believe at this point that the police start striking, and we get to see chaos in the streets. And then Dick Jones hires Boddicker for one last job to get rid of RoboCop. So they meet in the office. He proposes, he hires Boddicker again, since they're in cahoots. And then the police have withdrawn from the city, so there's rioting everywhere. And we get to see a new weapon. It's just kind of a ridiculous weapon. What do you remember the name of it?
No, I don't remember the name of it.
All right, so they come with these big ass sniper rifles, and these are real guns, but they don't actually shoot like explosives or anything. But
Okay.
they're called Cobra guns. And if I'm not mistaken, those are just Barrett 50 caliber sniper rifles.
Okay. So there aren't sniper rifles with grenade launchers on them?
No, not to my knowledge.
Oh, okay.
So I know his little, I think it just shoots some type of explosive round.
Oh, okay.
But the group of criminals all get together. Like one of the bad guys has his new SUX 6000, and he's like bragging about it. It's like, hey, I just got one just like you, because I think they just got paid for something. I don't know what it was. But Boddicker, he goes to his car and he pulls out this big ass gun, and he shoots his colleague's car with it.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. He's like, hey, give me your gun. And then he destroys his brand new car.
And then he gives the gun to the guy who he just blew his car up, and he's happy. He's not like sad.
He's like, oh, that's awesome. I'm going to destroy stuff, but not your car, just the fire hydrant.
Yeah, so we start seeing them shooting these guns around, and they're just blowing shit up everywhere on the streets. Um, I don't remember if there was a response. I don't believe there was a police response there. But later, I know, um, as we're kind of inching towards the climax here, I think
That's what she said.
both. Yeah, what happens now is we get Lewis and RoboCop. They're kind of recovering from their injuries, right?
Yeah.
RoboCop is fixing, I guess, fixing himself. We see him messing with like some type of lever, and he's just kind of moving his leg back and forth with it.
He drills into his head and takes his helmet off.
Yeah, so we get to see his face for the first time.
Yeah.
And they did a pretty good job with the makeup. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
I wonder how long it took. But I'm assuming they only did the makeup for that scene. So all the other times where he's just has the helmet on, he's just normal Peter Weller, which is the name of the actor who played RoboCop.
I've seen him in like a few things more recently when he's way older, obviously, but I don't remember what they were. I've seen him in a few movies and shows, I think.
Yeah, he's actually pretty damn old now. I think he's in his 80s, I believe, 70s or 80s.
Okay.
You may have seen him somewhere. But yeah, so he takes his helmet off. We get to see his face. I can't quite remember what the conversation was about, but my guess is it had something to do with his past.
I think he was like sort of just starting to discover who he is, and he said something about how he dreams about them or has flashbacks about them, but he doesn't actually remember them, and he's trying to remember his family.
Yeah. He says that he can feel them, but he can't remember.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Which
that's
would suck.
an interesting, serious part of it too. Those themes of the lines blurring between man and machine, so to speak, because he's a cyborg. Like he ends up having more humanoid characteristics than the corporation who built him expected. And then there's that thing in this scene that happened once earlier where for some reason he eats baby food as RoboCop.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, there was this funny scene when they first introduced the RoboCop baby food, and like one of the executives was like loving the food. Was like, this is good.
Yeah.
It's like baby food.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what he eats. He eats baby food, and they pump it out of like some weird dispenser. It's like, oh, okay. Why don't you just give them jars of baby food? Well.
Now that you are cyborg, you are not human. You are robot/human. So therefore, your fuel is baby food for some reason.
So they gather together and they know what they got to do. They got to take out the gang, right? And then we get to the spectacular finale. So they go together to take out the gang. And the entire gang now is equipped with these Cobra guns.
Yeah.
Which is basically would be a one-hit kill. So the gang is all gathered kind of like in I guess it's like an alley-ish type of way. And they all have their guns out. And then RoboCop is like, he comes and he walks like on a balcony. And then they start shooting at him. And they miss. Like he's not that far away.
Yeah.
And these guns have like a large blast radius. And here's the thing. RoboCop can't run.
Yeah.
He's just calmly walking forward while they're shooting these big ass guns at him, and he doesn't get hit.
Yeah.
The first guy that goes down is the black dude. He's the first guy that gets killed. He gets killed right then and there in that little skirmish.
Black guy always dies first.
Yeah. So they kind of scatter a bit. So I guess is it an Italian guy? The guy that was in the nightclub?
Yeah, I think so.
He fires on Robocop from a elevated position, and then there's a part where the ginger guy, he gets inside the van, right, and he tries to run down Robocop. What happens next, Andrew?
What
happens to Mr. Ginger guy?
Yeah. So Robocop leads him into a trap basically and runs toward this like giant canister of like a really toxic chemical, and the ginger guy crashes his van into it, and then it opens and spills all of these toxic chemicals all over the vehicle and him, and then he comes out and turns into this like weird melting deformed thing that's moaning like a cartoon character.
Yeah, so it basically gets turned into a mutant / the Toxic Avenger.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen that, but that's what he turns into.
Yeah.
So he's like gimped up. He starts crawling towards the Italian guy, and the Italian guy's like, "Get the fuck off me! I'll get your." I don't know. He doesn't want the guy to touch him, which makes sense. Hey, he's covered in toxic waste.
Yeah.
You don't want to be touched by that. So he runs away, and that's when he gets like a vantage point to take out Robocop, right? And then a lot happens here, right? So trying to think. I know. Okay, so we're not quite at this part yet. I know there's some other things that happen. Because while this is going on, Lewis is chasing Boddicker, and they're having a vehicle chase, right?
Right. Yeah.
So he's in his SUX 6000, and she's just like in a regular cop car. Eventually, I think they crash their vehicles, right?
Yeah.
So they crash, they get out. She gets distracted, right? I believe, and she gets shot by Boddicker, and she gets shot pretty badly. She gets shot a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And then she becomes at Boddicker's mercy. And this is where Robocop shows up. So he's showing up. This is just after he laid the trap for the Ginger Man. Oh, we're missing something because, okay, what happens to the Ginger Man during the car chase? Because there's a reason why they crash, right? Why Boddicker crashes. So you got to tell the reason why Boddicker crashes his car.
Boddicker crashes his car because the like deformed, chemically burned ginger guy drags himself out into the middle of the alley that they're driving through, and Boddicker crashes into him, but he swerves to try to avoid him, and then I think he crashes, and then Lewis crashes into him.
I think Boddicker actually crashed into him.
No. I mean, Lewis crashed into Boddicker after Boddicker crashed into Ginger Guy.
Actually, now that I think of it, I don't quite remember if Lewis actually crashed or not.
Okay.
Well, I know something happens. So, Ginger Man gets turned into mist.
Right.
So you just see like this giant sploshy blood and goo splatter, and then his head just goes rolling off into nowhere.
Yeah, that's like it's more of the ridiculously over the top violence.
Yeah, so his body basically turns to liquid upon impact, and his head just goes flying.
Yeah.
This is what causes Boddicker to crash. I don't remember exactly if Lewis crashed or if she just stopped her car to apprehend Boddicker.
I don't remember either.
Because I don't think she was hurt. She just kind of pursued him, and then he got out of the car, and that's when he shoots her. And then she goes down. Right. And this is kind of where Robocop shows up after, his trick on Mr. Gingerman. So one thing we know is that there's still two of them alive. So there's the Italian dude up in the vantage point. He has a Cobra gun. And then we have Boddicker, and he just has a normal gun. So they have kind of a standoff here. Right. And the standoff is that I don't think Robocop knows about the guy that's in the vantage point.
Yeah.
So
no, he doesn't.
Yeah. So they know they're kind of at a disadvantage. So what happens is while Robocop and Lewis are having a dialogue, Lewis crawls to the Cobra gun and blows the Italian dude up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then how does Boddicker die?
I know that. Lewis shoots him, doesn't she? And then
no, Lewis shoots the Cobra gun at the Italian guy.
Right. No. I remember that. Boddicker is attacking RoboCop after the guy in the tower dropped that.
That's right.
And he stabs RoboCop with his pole, and then while he's trying to stop him, at one point RoboCop extends that thing that sharp thing that retracts out of his knuckles that he uses as a stabbing weapon and stabs him in the neck, and I think that's how he dies, right?
Yes. Okay, because I had completely forgot. Thank you for remembering. That's right. So Lewis shoots the guy. Well, first the guy drops the stuff on RoboCop. Then Lewis shoots the guy. Then RoboCop. Well, she doesn't shoot the guy immediately, right? Because she's still crawling to the gun.
Yeah.
So during that episode, that's when Boddicker is standing over Robocop, and he's trapped, and he's trying to beat Robocop with like a piece of rebar or something.
Yeah.
And right after she shoots him is when he does the little knuckle Wolverine claw bit, and he gets him in the throat, I think, with that thing.
Yeah.
And then that's how he dies. We had to know at some point that this thing was going to be used as a weapon.
Yeah.
Because we see him extended a couple times to hack into some computers. Or we're like, oh, what? It's like, oh, yeah, he has that. He just plunged it in his neck.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the climax. Robocop goes to help Lewis up. And this is not the end of the movie. There's like one other scene after this. As there's still one more bad guy that's alive that he has to deal with.
Right.
And he is
Boddicker, basically.
Yeah, so we're talking about Dick Jones here. So as soon as Robocop shows up at OCP, what does he do?
He goes into I think he just goes into the boardroom where the executives are, and he says that Dick Jones is wanted for murder, and then I think there's more dialogue that I'm missing before Dick Jones takes one of the other board members hostage by holding a gun to his head.
The CEO.
Yeah.
So he takes his boss and he holds a gun to his head.
Yeah. He takes his boss and he holds a gun to his head, and then and then at one point the guy says to Dick Jones, "You're fired." And then RoboCop says, "Thank you," because then he can still obey his fourth classified prime directive, which was not to arrest or kill anyone employed by the corporation. So then he shoots him a whole bunch of times, and he epically falls out of the window, as often happens in movies.
Yes. And then I started thinking about this a little bit. It's like, okay, when you're fired, is it when someone says you're fired, or is it when you sign some documents? Like
Yeah,
what is the threshold here?
Good question. Yeah.
So, it has some.
Or he would want to be more technical about that. That's a good point.
But yeah, it's a movie. I wasn't gonna lambast it for something so minor. But there was one little thing you forgot.
Okay.
When he gets to OCP and he parks in the lobby, what's awaiting him there?
Oh yeah. The giant killer robot is there. So he uses that like grenade launcher gun. I forget what you said it was called. And
the Cobra gun.
The which one?
The Cobra gun.
Cobra gun. Yes. And he fires 2 explosive rounds at it and destroys the top half of it, other than its legs. And then its legs still try to chase him as he enters the building.
Yeah. I'll have to say, pretty good stop motion animation on that robot.
Yeah.
This was the 80s, so that was considered quite normal at the time. We weren't using CGI for these things. They're using practical effects at that. You want to see some pretty good practical effects, this movie has it.
Yeah, it holds up fairly well, I would say. I mean, you can notice that it is that, but it doesn't look super cheesy or unrealistic.
Yeah. I guess there's some parts when he's being shot up, it's obvious that it's like an animatronic.
Yeah.
It's not like a real person, but still, it's pretty damn gory.
Of course.
I think that part was actually edited, so I don't know which version you watched. If you watched the super special site version,
I did.
it doesn't have the unedited version of his death. So you can actually look at that clip on YouTube. So there's a slightly gorier version of that scene.
Oh, okay.
Cool. If you want to check it out. And I believe there's also a slightly gorier version of the scene where the guy gets killed at the boardroom.
Oh, okay.
So you can find those clips on YouTube. But yeah, the version we watched was not the director's cut, which has like the bloodier scenes in it.
Oh, okay. Oh, I bet it's even funnier that way.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious. One also thing to note, like at the name of the movie, he actually adopts his name, right?
Yeah, at the end of the movie, the one of the board members asks him his name, and he says Murphy.
Yeah, so he's no longer the inhuman machine. Like, he has a name, he has a past, and he moves forward. And maybe we'll see. I think we should probably check out the second part. Like, one of the things about the second part, I will warn you, it is not directed by Paul Verhoeven.
Oh, okay.
But I will say that the style is pretty much the same.
Okay.
Like, you still have the satirical stuff and the crazy over-the-top violence is there. The humor, I think they actually ratcheted up a little bit over the first movie. Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, we do. There's like bloody as hell scenes. I remember this one being, for me as a kid when it came out, because I wasn't really allowed to watch it. But while my parents were watching it, I would like sneak into the hallway because I could see the TV from my room if I looked out my hallway door. And I remember there were like some really gory parts that I was like, I didn't really handle very well at that
Oh
age.
yeah, I bet.
Now I'm talking about the second movie, not the first one.
Okay. And you said
Um,
you said you think the third one isn't good, and it's just totally serious.
it's not totally serious, but it's not good.
Okay.
I just don't think it's like more preachy, I think. Like, I don't know. If you saw it on your own time, I think you would know what I meant by it's more preachy.
Okay.
And
More.
yeah, I think it is more serious. It's not like there are some stupid parts that are like supposed to be funny and kind of funny, but I think overall it's not nearly as good as part one or part two.
Okay. So is it more like sort of like hitting you in the face with the morals, what the morals are?
Yeah, kind of. Part three is kind of like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit preachy. One note, this movie has one of my favorite film composers. He's not my favorite, but he's one of my favorites. Um, do you know who Basil Polidorius is?
No.
He also did the soundtrack for the Conan movies.
Oh, cool.
So he did the soundtrack, the very iconic theme for RoboCop. You probably personally don't remember it. It's very short, and it's very like triumphant. It's like do 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 do
Did he do the music for Starship
do.
Troopers also? Because it sounded pretty similar
Yes,
to me.
yes, he did. He's
Okay.
also the composer for Starship Troopers.
Okay. Yeah, because those themes sounded really similar to me. I'm like, wow, that sounds really similar to the Starship Troopers one.
Well, there you go. You've seen the Conan movies, right? You're gonna have to
Yeah,
watch these if you're gonna talk to Daniele Vallely,
I've seen
at
them.
least.
I've seen them.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't
But
seen the remake, but I've seen the Arnold ones.
I've never seen the remake either. But the Arnold ones are just classics.
From
Some
what?
people hate part two. I like part two.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. From what little from the little bit that Daniele and I talked about Conan before, I remember that both of us liked the first movie but didn't like the second one.
I actually like the second one.
What did you like
I
about it?
I liked that it had like kind of like a more, I don't want to use a stupid word, but a more diverse cast of characters.
I know what you mean by
Um,
diverse in this context, not like lesbians and transgenders,
no, just like because in the first
white,
movie they're just all,
brown, yellow, purple, and red people.
yeah, in the first movie they're just like these thieves, right?
Yeah,
And then in the second movie you got like freaking the Asian dude who does magic, and then um, the Amazon woman warrior, and I can't remember the other character
I don't
if there
remember.
was, but I remember really liking. I was like, oh, they that thing that they fought at the end of two was like really scary to me when I was young.
Yeah, I bet.
Um, and then one was, oh yeah, he fights James Earl Jones.
Yeah, who turns into a
Um,
giant snake.
yeah, so
That God Crom that James Earl Jones character turns into basically. That's a
I
very
thought
that's
I
a
thought he turned into like the snake thing, Seth or something. It's like,
oh
because Crom is is Conan's god.
Yeah, it's Crom, but Crom can like transfigure itself into sorcerers. Like it does that in a few of the different
In the books.
Conan
Is in the
stories.
books?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a bit of
Yeah,
like Norse mythology in a few of the stories too. Like they literally reference Valhalla and the Bifrost and um and uh and a few of the Norse gods too. I forget which ones, but a few of them. And then there are the frost giants too, which are also Norse. There's the one particular short story that's got a whole lot of direct Norse mythology in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have that copy that Robert Jordan did. I still haven't read it yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Daniel
And he
Igori said
did
he didn't like those ones.
the. We'll
I
have to
agree.
look into them.
If he does like I don't know whether he did this because like especially in the Warrior of the Altai or Altai or however you pronounce
Mhm.
it, he doesn't have like this phenomenally complex world building that he has in Wheel of Time, of course. But if he did apply that to the character of Conan, I could understand how that could seem jarring at least because the Conan stories are they're pulp fantasy. Like it's mostly just him going around killing monsters, getting in wars, getting captured, having to rescue princesses, and he has to take his kingdom back and all sorts of things like that. There isn't really there is some world building which is really interesting, but it's not really
Mhm.
complex, and there isn't like any moral philosophy or anything like that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I'll eventually get into some of the Conan stuff. But before we talk about what we're reading, I guess we just kind of have to wrap up our critique of the movie, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
Um, so, do you recommend this?
Yeah, for sure, man. Especially since you told me about that this was a satire, and I knew that going into this movie, I thought this
Mm.
was hilarious, just like Starship Troopers, because they're both
Well, I
satires,
wouldn't
obviously.
quite classify it as a satire. It's like there's certainly humorous points in the movie, but I don't think they're satirizing anything. Not that I could think of.
Oh, okay. You mean like it's unintentionally hilarious?
I don't think it's unintentional. Like, there are bits there that are supposed to be funny.
Okay.
Like, I think the guy getting shot in the dick is supposed to be funny.
Yeah, probably.
I also think the board member getting turned into ground beef is supposed to be somewhat comical.
Right.
Um, I don't think Murphy getting shot by shotguns is supposed to be funny, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
I think that's where we get into unintentional comedy,
Okay.
like something that's so horrific that it's and over the top that it becomes kind of hilarious.
Right.
Like, what the hell? Like, they're just unloading shotguns on the dude, and he's still on his knees and
Yeah.
not dead until he gets shot in the head. At the end.
And then he's still not dead.
Yeah, and then he's still not dead. As far as like the corniness, that's just the 80s. Um, I don't think there was an intentional um, funniness. There is some, of course, with the commercials. Of course, during those things, those are definitely satires of advertisements, especially advertisements in the 80s.
Yeah.
And the news, yes. The sitcom, I'll buy that for the dollar. Those are definitely satirical things that they threw in there. But I don't think the whole movie is an actual satire.
You think like the cheesy dialogue, for example, is just like cheesy 80s dialogue? Like just
Yeah, to me, it's just like that's the kind of cheesy stuff they would say in 80s movies. Like, just take any Arnold Schwarzenegger movie and you'll see the same cheesy dialogue in any of his 80s movies. Maybe, yeah, so I think it's just a product of the 80s when it comes to the cheesy dialogue. The 80s was a very cheesy decade.
yeah. And of course, Arnold has a cheesy catchphrase in every single one of his 80s movies, at least for sure. Most of his movies
Yeah,
in general.
yeah, certainly. So there's actually, I think there are more cheesy catchphrases in part two.
Oh, okay.
Because Robocop has way more dialogue in the second movie. We
Oh,
notice here that Robocop barely speaks.
yeah.
He does not talk very much at all.
Yeah.
He speaks much more in the second movie. And it
Okay.
has the same, Lewis and the same actors are there. It's just a different director.
Okay.
What was I going to say? Okay, so you said yes for recommend. Also, I'm saying I recommend. I would recommend it to anybody. One of the things I also forgot to mention was RoboCop was actually pretty huge at the time.
Yeah.
And when I say huge, there were a lot of kids' toys revolving around that movie. And that's the crazy thing about the 80s. You would have these ultra-violent movies and then kids' toys associated with them.
Yeah, that's true.
You do not see that these days.
No.
I remember there were Terminator toys, there were Rambo toys. Like, who? And these are toys for like 6 and 7 and 8 year olds. These are kids definitely that are not going to be watching these movies.
Oh, I wonder if Jonathan Haidt would say that the safetyism culture has something to do with that.
Well, I don't think, because I didn't intentionally watch any of these movies.
Oh, okay.
I only glimpsed them when I wasn't supposed to. I actually wasn't allowed to watch these types of movies when they came out. Like in '87, I was like 6 years old. So there's no way in hell I'd be able to handle that movie at that age.
I was from
But
my dad's balls still.
yeah, so yeah, RoboCop was huge. Kids knew who RoboCop was. There were RoboCop toys. And I think after the movie came out, there was like eventually like a RoboCop cartoon. But the RoboCop toys predated the cartoon. These were out when the movie came out.
Oh, okay. What would be like movies that would happen with that in like earlier times, like or later times rather, like today, if that happened? What do you think?
You mean like
What movie?
toys based off of super
Yeah.
violent movies? Well, there probably are, but they're not geared towards children. So we're talking about like collectible action figures and stuff like this. Not like toys for kids, which they were clearly marketed as in the 80s.
Yeah.
I don't think, I'm trying to think if people would have a problem with that today. Like if you had like some John Wick Lego set or something.
Yeah. I think some people would.
Have a problem with a John Wick Lego set?
Marketing violence to children.
Well, there's some acceptable level of violence, right? So, PG-13 violence is acceptable. I'm not sure about R, because we still market toys for like Star Wars. And isn't that PG-13?
I think it's most of them are PG. Maybe
Or
one or
PG?
two of them are PG-13. Rogue One might be PG-13. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, I would have to look into it, but then again, there's not a whole lot of like super R-rated movies like Deadpool. I guess you see kids with Deadpool merchandise, but not toys. I've seen kids wearing like Deadpool shirts and stuff, but I don't think they have like actual kids' toys for Deadpool.
I guess that's
But then
a little different too because he's a Marvel character, even though those are R-rated movies, right?
yeah, but I remember when I was a kid, there were still like X-Men toys and stuff. Like, but I do guess it's different because it's R and it's Deadpool. But yeah, there's no kids' toys for Deadpool, not that I'm aware of. But yeah, that's Robocop for you. I recommend it. I give it 2 thumbs up. It's unique. There's not really anything like it outside of maybe Starship Troopers, but that's by the same director.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's worth checking out for sure.
For sure.
All right. Did you have any reads this week?
I guess this week I've mostly been. I started reading Along Came a Spider, which is the first book by James Patterson with the Alex Cross character, who's his famous detective, and 2 movies were made a long time ago based on this series, and I watched them a long time ago when I was a kid, but I've never read the books until recently, and there are like 30 books in the series. And
crap.
the movies that came out based on the series were the first 2 in the book series, which are Along Came a Spider and then Kiss the Girls. That's I think those are I think Morgan Freeman plays Alex Cross in both of the movies, and Ashley Judd is in the second one, Kiss the Girls, and they're both murder mysteries basically. I would say the book is pretty good. I want to watch the movie again after I read the book, because based on what I remember from the movie, there are a lot of differences. And my dad read the book and rewatched the movie recently too, and noticed the same things. And other than that, I told you I've still been reading a bunch of the old classic Deadpool comics too, which are pretty awesome. I still like the movie more because it's more R-rated, like more violence and swearing, which makes Deadpool even better to me. But I still love that in the comics he's all wisecracking and still just mostly wants to kill people. And the plot is actually a little more complex in the comics too, which I think is pretty cool. And he occasionally breaks the fourth wall too, which is also cool. And then other than that, this week I've just been reading Hate Inc., which we're going to talk about.
Yes, I believe we'll hit that one up next week. You think you'll be done by next week?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
okay.
I think forget exactly how far I am into it. I think at least 130 pages or so. So I think I'm maybe about halfway.
Yeah, that's about halfway.
Yeah.
Are you liking it so far?
Yeah, it's great. He's a good writer, and I like how deeply he goes into his analysis of exactly how he explains all of his awesome analogies that I love, like how the news media explicitly copied from pro wrestling, and and how bad paying attention to the news is for you, and like how Trump did well because he markets himself the way that professional wrestling does, and all this other stuff in the book, all this other
I forgot that you haven't read any Taibbi books before, right? This is the first one.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So after reading this, are you like interested in reading his other books? Like
for sure.
Yeah, because he always has that like cynical prose. You know, he's not really filtered when he's talking about stuff. But you're like, expecting, oh, this upstanding journalist guy sticking to the
Hmm.
facts, but he definitely likes to be cynical and funny. Like he definitely uses those types of tools, and I like every few pages he talks about something that happened, which makes me like more interested in that event, and I go researching that event. And as there's a lot of talk of like he'll reference, I think he referenced Trump's like WWF performance, and I went and looked that up,
Oh,
um,
nice.
and like some other Jon Stewart things he was talking about. I went and looked those up. But yeah, it's a cool book. I really like it, and I can't wait till we get to discuss it a bit more.
Yeah, it's great.
Um, well, for me, I just finished up a couple books. So I finished the Anathema book that I had told you about.
All
I
right,
rechecked it
right.
out.
Remind me about that one again. I know you told me about it last week.
Yeah, so it's a science fiction book about kind of like a human society. It's not Earth, but their society is stratified between regular people and academics. So academics are totally disconnected from society. They even have their own language that they speak. And then you have the rest of society called the secular society. And it's funny because like the academics are almost like in a priesthood.
Hmm.
So they call, their fellow brothers and sisters, like they have terminology for them as if they were clergy. So it's funny, it's weird because they have religious like rituals, but they're academics.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a weird subversion. Like when you start like reading it, and you're like, okay, these are like clergy people, but it kind of reminds you of how things were. Like in the Dark Ages, the clergy were the academics, right? And they were kind of hoarding the knowledge to themselves. So it
Yeah.
kind of gives you that feel a little bit. Like there's
Okay.
this, but they're not actually religious, which is the weird thing. Like they have rituals, but they don't seem to be religious.
They're academic rituals.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's about this society, and then they get invade. Like they have a first contact moment with a different alien species, and
Okay.
we get to see how this society contends with that, and it's pretty interesting. I enjoyed it. It's really long. That's the only thing I would tell you about. I think it's almost 30 hours, the audiobook.
Okay.
So I finished that. I finished the first book of the Night Angel trilogy, which is called The Way of Shadows. Man, that book is crazy.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Brett Weeks has this weird ability to start a climax 2/3 of the way in a book and sustain that climax until the end of the book.
Oh, wow.
Like he has this weird ability to do that. So this book climaxes, the climax starts like 2/3 of the way of the book, and it just has the crazy pacing from then to the end.
Wow.
Um, I'm really assassin fantasy is becoming one of my favorite genres in fantasy, like the subgenres. So I really enjoy so far any assassin fantasy that I can get my hands on. This is definitely assassin fantasy. It's about a boy who gets brought up in this really fucked up way. It's the beginning of the book is really jarring because what happens to these kids is just super fucked up. But he becomes an adult, and plot happens. I found it really enjoyable, and I am continuing with the series. So I finished that,
How many books
and
series?
it's just a trilogy.
Okay. And that's the guy who wrote the is
The
that the
Lightbringer
Lightbringer
series.
series as well? Or they
Yeah,
two different series?
yeah, they're two different series, so they're not related as far as I can tell.
Okay.
Two way different magic systems are super different. Like one is based on color, and I don't know what the Night Angel one is exactly yet.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it gets described a bit more in the second book, but I'll find out.
You read
Um,
some of Lightbringer, didn't you?
I read the first two, so I
Okay.
listened to the first book and I read the second book because my library doesn't have only has the first book in audio.
Okay.
So I'm still getting through Malazan. Malazan is really weird. It's like I'm in a part where they're in a completely different part of the world and it has completely different characters. It doesn't seem like this book jumps back and forth that much between the different parts of the world. It just sticks in that part of the world for like 100 pages and then goes to a different part of the world for the next 100. And you
Oh.
may or may not be following the same characters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm just in this other part where it's a different part of the world and just like different characters.
A little more like Lord of the Rings than Wheel of Time in terms of that.
Um, I don't know yet because they haven't jumped back to previous characters yet.
Okay.
It's almost as each and the chapters are long. I don't know exactly how many pages they are, but typically you expect like most of these fantasy books with the shorter chapters, they're less than half hour reads. A lot of these Malazan chapters are like hour plus reads.
Oh, okay.
Um, it's hard for me to describe what's going on in Malazan right now, so I'm just going to put that on the back burner. I was told I'm not really going to understand until the end of the second book or something.
Wow.
So I just have to soldier it out. Yep, getting through Lord of Chaos, of course. And I finished another Ernest Cline book called Armada.
Oh, okay.
Ernest Cline is the author of Ready Player One.
Oh, I confused him for a second with Orson Scott Card, who wrote the Ender's Game.
Ender's Game. Oh, no. He's definitely influenced by Orson Scott Card. Like I even think there's a Ender's reference in this book.
Oh,
He references a lot of 80s and nerdy shit. It looks like in all of his writings. He's only had two books, but Armada is not in any way a sequel or prequel or anything to the other book. It's a completely different story. The closest I can describe Armada to would be the movie The Last Starfighter.
that sounds familiar, but I'm not sure if I've seen it.
Last Starfighter is a kid who's really good at a video game called The Last Starfighter, gets recruited to fight in an actual space battle because he's good at the video game.
I think I might have seen that when I was a kid.
Yeah, so the basic plot to The Last Starfighter is the basic plot to this book. And it does have like, it reads a lot like Ready Player One, where they're throwing like 80s references at you, nerd references, gaming references. So there's like this massively multiplayer game that everybody plays. Well, there's two of them. One, it's called Armada, and it's a space battle simulator, and these kids just play the hell out of the simulator, and it's the main protagonist gets picked because he's fucking really good at it, and he goes off to battle aliens in space. There's a lot more to it, but I really don't want to spoil it. It's way more complex than that, but I do not want to spoil anything about the story.
Cool.
So that's what I read this week.
All right.
And I guess we could start the wrap up, right? Oh man, almost 2. So yeah, that'll be a good time to start that wrap up.
Alrighty. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll say all the stuff that I like to say at the end of my videos here, and then you can give any of your plugs and say any last words before we end this. So, thanks to everyone for watching this Mixed Mental Arts / Mindgasms movie chat about Robocop. Watch the movie if you haven't seen it. It's pretty awesome. And thanks to those of you who subscribe to my channel, click the like button on this video, share it, comment on it, and especially to those of you who give me money on Patreon, which I really appreciate. And like I always say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all. And also, groove is in the heart. All right. Want to give your plugs and say anything else you want to say there, Dusty?
Yeah, don't have too much to say. I'll just say join us next week when we're going to talk about Hate Inc., the awesome media critique by Matt Taibbi. And if you want to find out what's going on, keep up to date with Mixed Mental Arts stuff, you can check out our Facebook group. Also, I know you're here on Andrew's channel. Please hit that subscribe button and hit that little bell button. So anytime he posts a video, you'll be alerted and you can go watch it. But yeah, that's about it. And thank you guys for watching.
Yep. Thanks to you too. Thanks, everyone. All right. Adios until next time, everyone. Keep having mindgasms.
Okay, bye-bye.